Simon, I might start with the news of the day. What will a 19th team mean for the competition?
Oh, look, I think it's fundamentally great for footy. I know if you look at the broader picture of the game, the more Australians we reach, it's fantastic for the game of AFL. And obviously Tassie's a very proud football state, and I think it's great for the Tasmanians. And I know they'll be a pretty parochial team, so I think it's just fantastic for footy, and it's a big day for footy.
Do you have any concerns with how it might impact competition for funding, for example?
Clearly there's some details that need to be worked through from a competition perspective. There'll be impact of all the clubs. There's no question about that. You've seen that with any expansion team that comes in, whether it's the draft, trade, free agency, list management, finance. There's a whole range of things that will come into that. I'm sure the detail will get released, but if you just look at the broader picture and the bigger picture of the game, I think it's an exciting day for footy.
Do you feel like the talent pool's there, Simon? Like there's more that can be unearthed? It's been talked about before with expansion.
I think you see, the game it is now and the talent that continues to walk through our doors. There's a lot of talent out there in Australia in footy, and there's a lot of guys that miss out on opportunities, and if they're put in the right environment, they can develop into great players. So I think the talent won't be an issue. I think we'll still have a great game of footy, as we have had for the last period of time. It's continued to grow our game, and the participation rates continue to increase, and having another team in our competition is only going to do that again.
We know clubs are always thinking like a few steps ahead. Knowing that this news was coming, has it already got the sort of cogs whirring and heads put together in terms of things like free agency and contracts and that down the line? You start thinking, how long do we lock these guys in for?
I think some of that thought process has probably been going on in clubs for the last 12 months. Like, this isn't new news. This has been something that's been spoken about for a while now. So I'm sure clubs have looked into that. Once again, the details still to come about the impact of what that's going to look like. But as I said, if you look at the fundamental for our game, it's just great for our game. So I think everyone's going to embrace it. Everyone's going to get behind it. And there are going to be challenges internally for clubs to deal with.
How's the list looking, Goody? How are the players looking? Fit and healthy at the moment?
Yeah, look, this week we get a couple back. Harrison Petty and Charlie Spargo both come back from concussion. So we're getting healthier and healthier. Joel Smith came back via the VFL last week, and obviously Tom McDonald, Ben Brown have had some niggles but have been playing VFL footy. So all those guys are starting to press claims for selection. But yeah, we get a couple back from concussion this week. So it's healthy. It's challenging for spots after the win last week, but we'll have to make some tough decisions.
Was there any news on Luke Dunson's knee, Simon? Did he get those scan results back yesterday?
Yeah, look, he's got a medial ligament strain, so a grade 2, so he's probably going to miss 4 to 6 weeks, which is disappointing for Luke. He was right on the cusp of selection. He's been pushing really hard for the last 3 or 4 weeks, so it's disappointing for Luke. But he'll go through the right rehab and get himself back in a good form. We need him up and running, and he's an important player for us. So it's disappointing that he's suffered that for 4 to 6 weeks.
Simon, Josh Shackey obviously picking up that injury. From all reports, he can play with it, but do you, considering you've got those bones coming back in?
Yeah, look, he's going to be available. Every indication is that he's fine and he's going to be able to manage that injury. So no matter what happens at selection, he's going to play AFL some form of footy, whether that's AFL, VFL. We haven't finalised our team just yet. But he gave us a really good look at what he could deliver at AFL footy last week. I thought he competed incredibly strongly. He's a very smart player and he used the ball well. So he's someone we're actually quite excited about within our environment.
So, Simon, what was the feeling when Keziah Pickett put pen to paper? Can you describe that?
It was relief. You want to keep your really good players, and Cozzy is one of those. But I think it speaks more about our environment, the culture that we create at the Melbourne Footy Club, and the love that he has for his teammates, and the love that we have for him. And it's just great reward for our footy club. Our supporters get so excited by the way he plays, and I speak about this a lot. There's only a few players that you go to the game of AFL footy and you love watching, and Cozzy's one of those guys. He excites everyone in the game, and more importantly, he excites the Melbourne fans. So to get his pen on paper is a massive relief for us internally, and we're just blessed to have him on our list.
Do you see his game going to the next level, and if so, how?
Yeah, look, it's a pretty high level. He's kicked 40 goals the last 2 seasons, but I think what you've seen this year is our ability to put him through the midfield and impact the game around stoppage and clearance is something that we want to continue to evolve with Cos. He's still got a lot of untapped ability in terms of where we want to take him, and he knows that. And we're excited by what he can deliver, but his ability to kick goals, have scoreboard impact, but not only do that, be able to impact around the ball, especially in big games. That's what we're looking for, Cozzy.
Simon, can I ask just about your forward line mix? At the moment you're playing Jacob Van Rooyen and bit of Max Gorn forward as well. I mean, how close do you think you are to actually settling that sort of that mix up, the combinations?
Yeah, look, scoring sort of hasn't been an issue for us in terms of in terms of hitting the scoreboard. So from a forward line perspective, we're happy with our method and how we're going about our ability to operate inside 50. From a personnel perspective, we're certainly not settled. We're open-minded about how we get better, whether that's with our rucks, whether that's with Jacob Van Rooyen, Harrison Petty, Ben Brown, Tom McDonald. We're very open-minded about that, how that looks. But ultimately, we're looking for a group that functions well together, and we continue to hit the scoreboard, which we've been able to do. So, we'll continue to look at what's best. And as I said, we're very open-minded. And as I said, it's not an issue scoring at the moment, so we're not too worried about it.
Do you feel like you need to settle on a certain mix, Simon, to be comfortable sort of point into the season, or do you feel like you can have this sort of fluid players in and out competing for spots and not necessarily need to have a settled sort of go to 6 or 7?
I think in time, and it'll settle down as the year goes on. As you start to find some rhythm about what works for you consistently, especially in different types of games against different types of opposition. That's really what you're trying to look for. So it'll settle down as the year goes on, I'm sure. But in the meantime, opportunities will continue to present until we find what we think is going to really take us forward to be the best team possible.
Simon, can I ask you, I suppose, a broader tactical, philosophical question about defending leads in last quarters? I mean, without sort of referencing Collingwood as such, I mean, they've done so well in coming back and from 3 or 4 goals down. But what are your sort of thoughts around defending leads when you get to 3 or 4 goals up, as opposed to, I suppose, continuing playing the way that got you that lead?
Yeah, well, the game goes for 2 hours. So ultimately, you've got to play that 2 hours out. And, as a group, we worked really hard over the summer. We coughed up a few leads last year. So we worked really hard about just continuing to win more moments, staying in the now and staying present and being able to see games through and knowing that you're going to get your opportunities. So it's making sure that your playing group stays in the right mindset to finish the game off the right way. And as I said, that's a learned skill. It's done over time and something that over the last 6 or 7 weeks we've been pretty strong at. So we're pretty confident as we move into that space of how we are able to defend leads and make sure we finish off games strongly.
Is it a bit of I know there's that sort of cliche, the best method of defence can be attack. Does that sort of apply in the sense that if you try and defend, the other team's not worried about you scoring when they do turn it over, so there's sort of not that, I guess, scoreboard accountability for them?
Yeah, I think what you've seen in AFL footy, even when you've got a 25-point lead, it's not much in AFL footy these days. So you've got to keep playing the game. And you can't go into your shell and try and defend the game. So you've got to keep attacking the game and make sure you can get the game into a position where it's broken. It's where you finish the game off. And that's the way we go about our footy, is we continue to play the game until we know the game's finished. And sometimes that can take right to the end to get that done.
Thanks, Simon.
So I just want Suns briefly. They've had a couple of good wins. It looks like they're getting a little bit of a roll. What have you made of them? I know they've taken it up to you a few times over the last few years as well.
Yeah, look, they're a tough team to play, especially up there. They've won 8 out of the last 11 at their home, so we certainly know what we're going up to. It's going to be a contest game. They defend really strongly, and they're a team that's on the improve. They played an outstanding game last week against Richmond, and have been in some really good form. They beat the Cats up there early on in the season, and you know it's a tough place to play. So we certainly know from our perspective what we're walking into, a really competitive team that plays well on their home ground. So sometimes the conditions can be a bit different. So we'll get up there and assess them on Friday and make sure we're really well prepared heading in.
Simon, could I just get a word on James Harms? Obviously performed coming in as a sub, and then from all reports backed that up again in the VFL. Has he done enough to earn his spot in the Sydney side?
He's getting closer and closer, Katie. He's improving all the time. You know, he's had 3 weeks back now in our environment, 3 games under his belt. He's continuing to improve. So selection's tight. You know, it's getting tighter and tighter. Like the performances of Cade Chandler, James Jordan, Tom Sparrow, you know, continue to make our team better. From Judd McVie. So selection and spots are hard, and guys that are out of the team have got to try and force their way into the team, which is a really encouraging sign for us. But Harms is one of those guys that's important to us. We know his best is good enough. It's just continuing to work his way back towards his best footy.